Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to this first ever episode of the Romano Report Podcast. Now, for those of you who are already familiar with the Romano Report, which is my main channel, you're not going to find this channel to be a whole hell of a lot different in terms of content and substance, but what you will notice is that these videos are longer, and that is the point of this channel. I don't want to bore you with all the reasons for why I have decided to start this second channel for long form videos. Maybe I'll talk about it in the future. I just want to get right to it. By the way, before I do, I want to thank you all all of you who gave me suggestions for the name for this new channel as I had requested. I didn't know what to call it. I went with, as you can see, just the Romano Report Podcast for various reasons, mostly having to do with branding and discoverability and things like that. But you guys did come up with some really good names, and I'll be honest with you, some of them I liked a heck of a lot more than the Romano Report. But I was persuaded that this might be the best course of action. But it really doesn't matter. It's just a name. It's the substance that counts. So why don't we get after it here? Got a few things to talk about here today. I want to begin with Ghislaine Maxwell. Because despite Donald Trump's desperate attempts to change the subject to literally anything else but Epstein, we're going to remain focused. I do have other things I want to talk about, but I want to begin with Ghislaine Maxwell. And by the way, what he's doing in Washington, D.C. with his federal takeover, that's also about distracting from Jeffrey Epstein. It's about other things also, to be sure, which I've been talking about on the Romano Report. By the way, if you're going to watch this channel, the Romano Report Podcast, please also watch the main channel, because there's probably, just by the nature of this, there's going to be things that you're going to miss if you don't also watch those videos. So please do that. But I've been talking about some of the other reasons, important reasons, why Donald Trump is doing what he's doing in Washington, D.C. One of them, I believe, and I explained in my most recent video on the Romano Report, so please check this out, is to rig the 2026 midterm elections. That, I think, is one of the main reasons why he's doing what he's doing in Washington, D.C., which I explained. So, anyway, back to Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I came across an article yesterday in my preparations, but I didn't have time to get to it yesterday, and I went to go print out the article again today, and it was behind a paywall. Yesterday I was able to read the article. I wish I had printed it out yesterday, but today it's behind a paywall. And if I might digress here for a minute, some of these, I know we're in a completely new landscape, and it's increasingly difficult for media companies to figure out how to make money, especially, websites, the written word, blogs, websites, and things, how to make money when everything's moving to podcasts. Fewer and fewer people read, but also because of, AI and things like this. I mean, it's very difficult for print publications and online print publications to make it, find ways to make revenue. But guys, you're going to have to do a better job of figuring it out, because I tell you what's not the way is putting up these paywalls. Okay. I read. That's how I get most of my news. I don't have the patience to watch cable news. I will see clips of what's going on. Instead of watching cable news, I'll go on social media to a few accounts that do a good job of clipping up the news and stuff. I'll see the relevant parts of things, videos of things that I need to see. I don't have patience, especially for most cable news. I don't want to sit there and listen to some jackass. Usually they don't know what the hell they're talking about anyway. ramble on and on. I don't want to sit through an hour-long thing. Yeah, I just can't. So I get most of my news and information from reading. But I tell you what, I can't subscribe to every damn one of your publications, and I'm not gonna. In fact, I subscribe to precious few, and that's probably the case for most people. Now, when you put your shit behind a paywall, you have lost the ability to even get ad revenue from me because I can't see the damn article. So I'm just gone. And so the only way you can make money off of me is for me to subscribe to your publication, which I ain't gonna do. So you have no ability to get any money from me. And, you know, I hate to break this news to you, but if it's news reporting that you're doing, you're not the only game in town. I can find the same information from other websites. Okay? Yeah, maybe I can't get an editorial anywhere else that you might happen to put up, but you know what? I don't care. I'm still not going to subscribe to your publication. I'm sorry, it sucks, but that's the information environment in which we live. You guys need to do a better freaking job of figuring this shit out, but enough with the damn paywalls. So anyway, there was this article about Ghislaine Maxwell, and I'll just talk to you about what I remember, the relevant part I remember. But it was about how she's doing in prison. It was about this information came from a former inmate who was in there with her and got to know her fairly well. I think she was at a time a cellmate with Ghislaine Maxwell. And so she knows her very well. She observed how she was in jail and all this stuff in prison. But the important part of this article, and it's funny because it was only a small part of it. I was reading the article and I'm like, wait, what? What did you say there? And they just went on straight on to something else. But what caught my attention was that this inmate says that Ghislaine Maxwell says she has dirt on Trump. And that she expected to get a pardon. But not from Donald Trump. She expected to get a pardon from Joe Biden. Because she has all this damaging information on Donald Trump. And she believed, in retrospect, mistakenly, that the Biden administration would be interested in this information implicating Trump. And that they would use it against Donald Trump. To maybe prosecute him. To prevent him from coming back into power as he has now done. And she couldn't believe it. I thought they would want this. I thought I was going to get a pardon from Biden. So that's what she was angling for. And I got to tell you, that infuriated me when I read it. Now, I don't know that it's true. I mean, this came from a former inmate, a convicted felon, I guess. I mean, she's probably got credibility issues. I know nothing about this woman's backstory. So I don't know. I will put that up front. I don't know if she was telling the truth or not. But I have no reason to doubt that she was telling the truth. And if she is telling the truth, I can 100% believe it. I certainly believe, because I believe this to my core right now, that Donald Trump did do some pretty horrible things with and to children. That, I don't know for a fact, but that is my belief based on the way he has been behaving, based on the way he has so desperately tried to cover this up and distract from his involvement with Epstein. He is acting exactly how I would expect him to act if he in fact abused children. So, I 100% believe that he did something very, very bad. I mean, think of all the things that we already know about Donald Trump that he did, was indicted for, all these horrible things. He doesn't care that we know about any of that. He's gotten away with all of it. So what could be worse than all that? That he would risk a rift with his MAGA base over this. That he would go to such extent to try to cover this up. Got to be pretty bad. It's got to be like far worse than inciting a violent insurrection on live TV against your own government. It's got to be a lot worse than that, and that's pretty damn bad. So I 100% believe it. So I can believe, certainly, that Trump did something, and then I could certainly believe that Ghislaine Maxwell knows about it and has the goods on him and can implicate him. And then sadly, I can also 100% believe that if that information were presented to the Biden administration, that they would just do nothing with it and just ignore it. Because the Biden administration, and you know what? I think enough time has gone by that people need to start being honest with themselves about the Biden presidency. I have nothing against Joe Biden personally. I think in many ways he did a very good job. It's not about that. The truth is that no one is more responsible for Donald Trump, in my view, being president again today than Joe Biden and Merrick Garland. Joe Biden made a conscious decision, and he talked about it many, many times, to not go after Trump. My presidency isn't going to be about looking into the past president. I want to move on. We're going to turn the page. They believed that Donald Trump was defeated and he was never coming back. And they just wanted to turn the page. They wanted to rise above it. You know, part of that whole when they go low, we go high bullshit that has led us exactly to where we are now. And then appointing someone like Merrick fucking Garland to be Attorney General. Remember, he chose Merrick Garland after Donald Trump tried to steal the election and incite an insurrection and try to overthrow the country. He picked Merrick Garland. There was never in American history a time when it was more important to pick the right Attorney General. And at that moment in time, Joe Biden picked Merrick Garland. Could not have picked someone worse for the moment than Merrick Garland. And Merrick Garland was very clear that his point of view, I don't know whether it was dictated to him from Joe Biden or whether he was already of this view. Yeah, we're not going to go against. We're not going to do anything to hold Trump accountable. And it was clear they were not going to. They did nothing. Merrick Garland did nothing to investigate Donald Trump. It was only after the January 6th committee had their public hearings when they released all that information that the DOJ didn't even know about. And their hand was forced. They were forced. Merrick Garland was forced to appoint an a special counsel at that point. If it wasn't for those January 6th hearings, I don't think he ever would have appointed Jack Smith to be special counsel. And the fact that he waited 2 years to do it screwed Jack Smith right from the get-go. The fact that Trump wasn't convicted is not Jack Smith's fault. He did a fantastic job. If he had been appointed on day one, we wouldn't be where we are right now. Donald Trump would have been convicted. He'd probably be in prison right now. So the point is, Donald Trump is president. There's a lot of people responsible for this. Mitch McConnell in the Senate. There's lots of people whose failures, whose cowardice, whose incompetence allowed Donald Trump to get back in the White House. But certainly chief among them are Joe Biden and Merrick Garland, who just wanted to turn the page, who wanted to rise above it, who believed Donald Trump was no longer a threat. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to prosecute him. And so I absolutely believe that if Ghislaine Maxwell, and it would have been done through her attorneys, had presented information, or at least offered it, to the Biden administration, that Joe Biden and Merrick Garland would have turned it down. Just said, nah, we're not interested in going after Donald Trump. He's not coming back. We don't have to worry about him. I can absolutely 100% believe that. And it just makes me sick. If that's true. And again, I don't know that it's true that Ghislaine Maxwell had had the goods on Trump that could have constituted evidence that could have been used against him. But even, she maybe could have provided roadmaps to evidence if she didn't have admissible evidence on her own. But look, if she saw anything firsthand, she's a witness. She can testify. Now, you're going to have to corroborate it because she's also a convicted felon. You can't bring charges. I mean, you can, but you're going to lose. You got to have more than just the word of a convicted felon angling for a pardon. Maybe there wasn't anything more than that. I don't know. I really don't. But I can believe it. I could believe that maybe there was. And if there was, it further makes me sick because we didn't have to be here. This man shouldn't be president today. And it was just because of the failures of so many people, including Joe Biden and Merrick Garland. Their failures to aggressively pursue justice against this criminal Donald Trump. One of the reasons we're here. I'm going to tell you what I think, to me, is the most disheartening thing. And the thing that fills me with the greatest sense of dread about the future and our ability to overcome this criminal dictator and to save our republic. And that is the hair on fire hysterics and defeatism of many people who oppose Donald Trump. My comments to my videos and on my other social media platforms are filled with people who have already given up. Just completely given up, just accepted that Donald Trump will get whatever he wants. He's never going to leave. He's going to be dictator for life. There's nothing we can do about it. And you know what? If you convince yourself that that is the case, that there's absolutely nothing that can be done about it, then you've already lost and he's already won. You just handed him victory. I don't think it is smart or prescient, or people just like to predict doom and gloom and to be able to say, see, I told you. What you're creating by doing that, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy is what it is. By you saying that there's nothing we can do, it's all over, our republic is done, Trump will be a dictator for life, then you're just guaranteeing that outcome. And honestly, if we had, there's always been people like that throughout history, but if we had a critical mass of those people at various times throughout our history, we would already cease to be a republic. We would have lost it long ago. And I completely understand the mindset I understand the sense of worry, the disgust that everyone feels. It's sickening that we're even here. We shouldn't even be having to talk about any of this. I mean, this man was impeached twice. He should have been removed both fucking times. Especially after he literally organized a criminal conspiracy to overthrow the government and organized and incited a violent insurrection against the government to prevent Congress from certifying a vote that he lost. I mean, certainly after that, he should have been convicted in the Senate. But those coward Republicans who didn't want to do the right thing for fear of some temporary backlash from Trump's cult, they looked for any reason to vote against impeachment, to vote against his conviction in the Senate. And the reason they all landed on, the reason given by their leader, Mitch McConnell, on the floor of the Senate, who said, yeah, Trump is responsible for all this, but remember, the Senate conviction vote happened after he already left office. So the excuse they came up with was, well, he's not president anymore, so we don't really have the power to convict him, because conviction removes him from office, and since he's not in office anymore, it's pointless to do this, and we don't really have the power because he's already left office, so we don't have the power to remove him, so we're going to vote against this. They pretended to be defending the Constitution by voting to acquit the guy who tried to destroy the Constitution. That is one of the most pathetic examples of cowardice in all of American history. And of course, removing him from office is not the only thing that conviction on an impeachment does. It also has the added penalty of preventing him from ever serving as president again. He would have been forever prohibited from being president if they had convicted him in that Senate impeachment trial. But they're a bunch of freaking cowards. Anyway, the point is, I understand everyone's frustration. You can't, at sometimes, and I do this too, you can't, you're up and down with your emotions. Sometimes you're like, yeah, let's get this son of a bitch. And other times you're like, we're screwed. I get it. I totally get it. I'm there with you. But I am, just the level of defeatism, that's what scares me the most. Because it is not going to be easy, but we are not completely defeated yet. And we don't have to be. This criminal piece of shit does not have to win. He's been able to be successful up to now because people have let him be. And that's the only way he's going to get what he wants in the future as well, is if people let him get his way. And we're seeing far too many people let him get his way. But ultimately it comes down to the people, and I am seeing the people who should be standing up against this, motivated to bring this piece of garbage down, just throwing up their hands in the air and saying there's nothing we can do, we're screwed, it's all over. And I'm just worried we're getting to the point that there's so many of those people, and someone who has already decided there's nothing we can do won't do a damn thing to fight against this, because it's futile. No one's going to engage in a futile effort that might put them in some sort of risk. Or even just, they don't want to waste their time with a futile attempt to bring this piece of garbage down. So they just won't. And I think I'm worried. I'm worried that too many people are throwing in the towel, which is exactly what he wants. Throwing so much crap at us on a daily basis and getting away with it is designed to make you give up. That's part of their plan. They're not even hiding it if you pay attention to these people. And yet too many people are going right along, doing exactly what Donald Trump wants them to do. Just giving up. That's what dictators and authoritarians want. They want you to feel a sense of hopelessness. They want you to give up so that you don't stand against them and just let them have their way. And I want to read to you just the first couple sentences of a comment I got to my last video on the Romano Report, the main channel. I don't know. I'm saying that because I'm thinking of starting this podcast I've been talking about, and I might actually put this on the new. So I don't know. I don't know which channel this is going to be on. But anyways, I got this as a comment on the Romano Report. And I don't mean to pick on this person. I've got a lot of comments like this. I just want to address something she said. She said, I agree. However, if you believe he won't leave the White House when his term is over. I didn't say I believe he won't leave the White House. I have been consistent, by the way, in saying I don't know what the hell he's going to do. But I don't put it past him trying to stay illegally in office after the expiration of his term, and you'd be a fool not to. He's already tried that. So of course I think that's a possibility. I don't know that it's an inevitability. Maybe it depends on who wins. Because Donald Trump is not going to be on the ballot. That I'm sure of. Talk about that more later, but that's just not going to happen. A lot of bad things might happen. That's not something that's going to happen. He's not going to be a candidate. And by the way, you know who also agrees with me that he's not going to be a candidate for president in 2028. Some of his biggest ass kissers who are all making plans to run for president themselves. If they thought that Donald Trump was going to run for president in 2028, seriously, they wouldn't be making preparations to run for president themselves. People like Steve Bannon, for crying out loud. I'm going to talk about that in another video. Is considering and according to reporting, putting together a campaign for him to run for president in 2028. And he is one of the people who has been most vocally out there saying, yeah, Trump is going to run again. It's all bullshit. It's to play to the cult. Even Steve Bannon knows he's not going to run again. Wait, he's not going to run again. And maybe, as I said, it depends on who wins. If a Republican wins, he might be like, okay, fine, I'll go. I'll go play golf. I'll go spend my millions. I'll go ride on my $400 million plane that the American taxpayers like fools just retrofitted for me to the tune of $1 billion. I'll go fly around all the world on that. I'll be I'll be spending all that money that I got from the cult and all the bribes I've been taking all these years. Because I know no one's going to come after me. Because a Republican just won, I am now in no danger of being prosecuted. Nothing's going to happen to me. So I feel free to go off. Maybe if a Democrat wins, however, maybe then he decides, you know what, I'm not going. That election was rigged and I have to stay in office to prevent the election from being stolen, and whatever he might try to do, whatever justification, maybe it depends on who wins. If a Republican wins, maybe he goes. If a Democrat wins, maybe he tries to illegally stay. I don't know. I don't know what this psychopath is going to try to do. And by the way, this man is deteriorating every day before our eyes. More and more, every day you see him, he's more and more demented. What's he going to be like in 3.5 years from now? Who the hell knows? So I can't predict what this jackass is going to do. I can anticipate some things that he might do, and I think we need to be doing that. So anyways, let me get back to her comment. If you believe he won't leave the White House when his term is over, what makes you think he will leave the building if impeached and removed? Because she's responding to a video in which I talked about, look, people need to, and I believe this, people need to accept the fact that there is no way to get rid of him unless you impeach and remove him from office. That's it. That is the only constitutional remedy that we have. People can try to, people think it's too hard to impeach him and remove him. Yeah, he's not going to, the way things are right now, he's not going to be impeached and removed. But if we have elections, well, which we will have elections, Trump is going to try to rig them to the best of his ability. He's doing that right now with this redistricting and all this stuff. And there's other things that he's going to try to do, which I did a video on. And that one is definitely going to be on the Romano Report. So if you haven't seen that video, look at that. And there's going to be other things he's going to try to do to rig the election. I have no doubt about that. But even his attempts to rig the election, if this is a big wave election against Republicans, which I believe it will be, even their attempts to rig it may not prevent them from getting thrown out of Congress and Democrats taking over. And I've always said this, and this is true, and it will always be true. Donald Trump can and will be impeached and removed from office. A lot of people think, I hear people all the time say to me, well, he was impeached already. He was impeached twice and nothing happened, so impeachment doesn't mean anything. Yes, genius, it's because he wasn't removed by the Senate. Impeachment and removal, it's a two-part process. Impeachment in the House, simple majority. Removal by conviction in the Senate, that's 2/3 majority. Much harder to get. So he was acquitted in the Senate. That's why he wasn't removed. It's not that the impeachment process doesn't mean anything. It's because we didn't go completely through with it. We let him off the hook in the Senate, thanks to Mitch McConnell and the boys. But he will be impeached and removed from office when members of Congress either agree and want him impeached and removed and vote that way, or the ones who, might be Republicans and who you wouldn't expect to vote against him, if those people are made to fear us more than they fear Trump. And that could happen now. Who knows? If we find out more about Epstein and some of the worst of our suspicions about him and Epstein and what he might have done to children are proven to be true, if some more evidence about that comes out, hell, that could do it. The point is, if Republicans see angering the American people as a bigger threat to their future in public office than getting on the wrong side of Donald Trump, then they will impeach him and remove him. When we demand it in enough numbers that they fear us more than him, then they will get rid of him. And if it takes us kicking their asses in the midterm elections, God willing, that could put the fear of God in them. I mean, he will be a lame duck. I know people think, oh, he'll never be a lame duck. He's going to be a lame duck. As I said, as soon as the midterm elections are over, he's a lame duck. Maybe not in the typical lame duck fashion, but he's going to be a lame duck. And especially if Republicans get their asses kicked. They're going to see, you know what? If we keep defending this piece of shit, and believe me, a lot of those elected Republicans hate Donald Trump as much as we do. They're sick of defending the guy. They're caught between a rock and a hard place all the time. They're caught between voters and their orange God king to a large extent, depending upon the district and the state. But them getting their asses kicked in the midterm elections could change their calculus. And then hopefully there are much fewer Republicans in Congress, and those fewer Republicans after the midterm elections could be persuaded, because of their own self-interest, to finally vote to impeach and remove him from office. It is certainly a possibility. If we stay engaged. Donald Trump is historically unpopular. Anyway, I don't want to we'll talk more about that later, but let me get back to this comment. So let me just read it again. If you believe that he won't leave the White House when his term is over, what makes you think he will leave the building if impeached and removed? He is going to hunker down in the Oval Office with the doors locked, no matter how the eviction notice shows up. What does that look like? Who do you send in to remove a president? And so she goes on and on and on. Yet, don't think that I haven't thought about this scenario before. And my response to that is, oh, please, please let that happen. Oh, I can't think of anything better, to be honest with you. I think that is my dream scenario. That we impeach him and remove him. He gets impeached in the House and convicted in the Senate, and then refuses to leave. Oh, man, would I love that. Because I do not want his presidency. I don't want him to just serve 4 years and then just go off into retirement and play golf and all that. I want his presidency to end in disaster for him. That is what I want. I want him to go down bad. I want it to be an ugly end to this criminal insurrectionist piece of shit. And I can't think of anything better. Or maybe I can think of a couple. But this is pretty damn good. For him to be impeached and removed and then refuse to leave. To go into the bunker. I like how she uses the term bunker. Oh, no, she doesn't. She says hunker down. They hunker down in the White House bunker, right? And refuse to leave. I'm not coming out. And he surrounds himself with a few loyalists and maybe a few loyalists in the military. Who knows? Stationed outside the White House, just refusing to leave. I would freaking love it. Because what do you think he's going to do? He's going to control the federal government from his bunker. You think the whole military is going to go along with him and it's going to be a civil war to protect this demented lunatic? Imagine what he's going to be like I said, in 3.5 years. The guy's going to be... I can't even imagine how demented and insane the man's going to be. He will literally be the Mad King at that point. Are we going to be in civil war? Are we going to have, seriously, members of the military fighting the states or whatever? We try to get him out of there. They're actually literally going to go to war to protect someone who's been impeached and removed from office. And how friggin' old is he going to be at that point? And so demented. It's not going to happen, okay? I would love, however that ends, because she speculates, well, who do you send in to remove the president who refuses to leave the White House and all that stuff? I don't know exactly how it's going to end up, but I can tell you is he's not going to be successful. So, I mean, it's going to end very, very badly for him. Probably with him being dragged out, kicking and screaming, leaving an orange smear across the floor as he's dragged out of there. His hair trailing 3 feet behind him, what remains of it. Oh, it's going to be awesome. His diaper hanging off. And who knows for how long he'll be hunkered down in the White House. Who knows if he'll even be able to get new diapers in there. Might get pretty ugly and messy. So I would love it. I would freaking love it. Please, please let that happen. Anyway, the point is, people need to get ready to fight. I'm seeing the exact opposite with far too many people. They're already giving up. Already giving up. This is not a man who is doing things out of strength. This is a man who's doing things out of weakness. He's a pathetic loser. He's a laughingstock around the world. The only people who take him seriously are his cult and the people here who are not part of the cult, who hate this guy, but who are busy wetting themselves because they don't know what to do. There's been difficult times in our history. It's not always easy, and we're in a difficult position now. We can't just all cower away and sit in a puddle of our piss in the corner and wring our hands. It's time to fight against this. It's not an inevitability, but it will be if we all give up. One of the things that really pisses me off is to hear people refer to Donald Trump as a conservative. Think of whatever you want about conservatives, and there's a lot of people of all different political points of view who watch my videos. I understand that, and I appreciate that, and I want as many people from different points of view watching this channel as possible, because what I try to focus on are things that we should all be able to agree on. I don't get too much into the weeds on specific issues because I think that there are legitimate differing opinions you can have on specific issues. And wherever you come down on a lot of specific issues, it doesn't matter. Right? We can disagree, and it's not the end of the world if your position prevails or my position or someone else's position prevails. If we're following the Constitution, if the federal government is operating within the confines of the Constitution, then different policies from time to time aren't going to be our downfall. Because the Constitution constrains government from getting involved with so many things. And so if and that's the way it's supposed to work, but if the federal government, if we, through our federal government, just do the things that the Constitution allows government to do, we're going to be okay, regardless of what policy gets implemented, for the most part. And so I don't want to drive people away because we might have a differing opinion on certain issues. I'd rather keep our conversations to the things that we should all be able to agree upon no matter what. Whether, what our political point of view, whether you're a liberal or traditional conservative or somewhere in between. And you know what? So I try not even to use those labels anymore because they are more and more becoming meaningless and to me part of the problem. Fucking labeling everything. In a lot of ways, those labels are losing their meaning. Anyway, I try to keep it focused on things like law, the Constitution, principles, fundamental principles, right and wrong, law and order, things we should be able to agree on, democracy itself, those kinds of things. And those are things we should be able to agree on no matter what our political point of view. Now, anyway, So whatever you think, whether you're a conservative or you're something else, however you may label yourself and whatever you may think of conservatives, Donald Trump is no conservative. Not as that term has been traditionally used. A part of the thing that has happened in the age of Trump is that some words have completely lost their meaning, like conservative. The traditional meaning of that word is just destroyed. It doesn't mean that anymore. So when you use the word conservative now to apply to Donald Trump, I'm sorry, that word no longer has the meaning that it has always had up to this point. Because Donald Trump is not a conservative in that way. So now conservative just means Republicans? If that's the case, then why do we use the word conservative anymore? Because it doesn't actually stand for any principles of any kind. There's no unifying set of principles that word conveys or represents anymore. If it's just whatever Donald Trump says at any given moment, that's the conservative position. Okay, then why do we use the word at all? Stop using conservative. Just Trump or Republican. Whatever. So Trump is no conservative, as that word is traditionally used. And here's another of a million articles and points of evidence to show you that. Let me show you this. This is in the Wall Street Journal. Here's the headline. The U.S. marches towards state capitalism with American characteristics. President Trump is imitating Chinese Communist Party by extending political control ever deeper into the economy. Now, as so many of these damn articles are now, this fucker is behind a paywall. So I can't read it. Yesterday, it wasn't behind a paywall. When I had originally, copied the link to this article in my preparations for this show, it wasn't behind a paywall. I was able to read it. Wish I had printed it out again, but whatever. You get the gist of the article, and it's undeniable. This is not capitalism anymore. And say what you will about capitalism. This is not the free market. This is something else. This is state-run capitalism. This is frankly how they do it, as the article says, in China. This is how the Chinese Communist Party operates. There is capitalism happening in China, but it is intertwined with government. And more, that is what Donald Trump is doing. Now, Donald Trump, not yet, has not outright seized control, ownership over private corporations and businesses, but he has exerted control over them nonetheless. He tells them what to do. There was some Intel, I think, that Trump tweeted out, or truth or bleated out, whatever the hell, on his social media platform there, calling for, I think it was the CEO of Intel to be fired. And what happens? The CEO of Intel runs over to the White House to go kiss Trump's ass, or something along those lines. I think that's what happened. This is what happens. Donald Trump threatens some company, and then they do whatever he wants. You had Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, over there in the White House last week, kissing his ass, literally presenting him with gold in the Oval Office. Giving the dictator gold for preferential treatment. Please don't come after my company. Here's some gold, and let me sing your praises, because that's what you want. And this is how Trump exerts control. And you're seeing it, most disturbingly, with media companies. Part of the problem in this country, and it's a big problem, is the corporate ownership of media companies. So, for example, CBS being owned by Paramount. And Sherry Redstone, the controlling owner of Paramount, as you know, wanted a merger to go through with whatever the name of the company was, Skydance or something, which needed government approval. And so Donald Trump sued, complete bogus lawsuit, sued CBS over their 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. He had no chance in hell of winning that. It was completely 100% frivolous. And by the way, it wasn't even a defamation lawsuit. He brought it under Texas state law. It was a consumer protection statute. Like, it was designed for, like, if you were induced to buy a product because of false advertising. You know, they say, oh, buy this product, it will do X, Y, and Z. You buy the product and it doesn't do X, Y, and Z at all. You were defrauded with false advertising. Well, this statute in Texas gives you the right, gives you a cause of action. You can sue the company for the false advertising. It's to protect consumers. Trump used that, his lawyers used that statute to sue CBS because Trump didn't like the interview that 60 Minutes did with Kamala Harris. They said, oh, because they edited it, it was deceptive and it hurt me. It makes no sense, right? And so his little bogus lawsuit, the lawsuit is not how he got Sherry Redstone and Paramount to do what he wants. It was the fact that they needed his approval for the merger. So what'd they do? They settled the lawsuit, gave him millions of dollars as a bribe under the guise of settling a lawsuit, completely frivolous lawsuit, in order to get preferential treatment from the government. So we have, and so it's really concerning when this is happening with media companies, because we give the press First Amendment protection specifically to prevent them from having to succumb to this kind of government influence. We wanted to protect their freedom to report accurately on what's going on so that the American people could be informed, so that all this democracy shit could actually work. But even with that First Amendment protection, they still are little more than government propagandists in the age of Trump. So it's really concerning when this happens with media companies. But he exerts control across, you know, whatever companies he wants to target. Seemingly, he's able to control them with a freaking post on Truth Social, calling for someone's resignation or a boycott, or he just says something bad about him. They just get right in line and do whatever he wants. So he essentially controls private sector companies, even without ownership. He controls them. He's exerting Chinese Communist Party level control over business in this country. Now, you can call that a lot of things, but what you can't call that is conservative. They were, conservatives used to be against government intervention in the economy. Now we have a guy who is labeled as the conservative, literally controlling private sector companies as president. And that's conservative? This is what I mean. The word doesn't mean anything anymore. So maybe we should just fucking retire it. You know what another word that doesn't mean shit anymore is patriot. They've destroyed that word. Because now you hear the word patriot, you think of a knuckle-dragging, racist, sexist, piece of shit, insurrectionist MAGA. That's what you think of now when you hear the word patriot. They've done that with many words. They've destroyed a lot of words. Anyway, he's a lot of things, but he's not a conservative. Well, let me give you yet another example of this authoritarian thug acting just like the Chinese Communist Party in exercising control and threatening and intimidating and harassing and extorting American companies. You might have heard of this deal between Trump and NVIDIA and AMD. Let me read a little of this article from CNBC to you. The White House confirmed Monday that NVIDIA and AMD agreed to give the U.S. government 15% of their revenue from sales to China. In return, the companies will receive licenses to sell certain chips in China. So what this is it's essentially a tax on anything these two companies sell to China. It's an export tax, right? And of course, who knows how he got them to agree to this? What kind of threats and intimidations? Companies aren't generally in the business of saying, hey, federal government, can we give you 15% of our revenue? We've just got too damn much money. It is, public corporations are required by law to maximize shareholder earnings, right? That is their job. It's part of the problem with our corporate law in this country, but that for another day. So it is their fiduciary obligation to shareholders to maximize their earnings. And so normally, these companies aren't in the business of just giving their money to the federal government. So they were forced somehow to do this, to pay this export tax to the federal government for their sales to China. So keep in mind, export tax. Here is how this same CNBC article begins this story. Okay, I started reading a couple paragraphs in. Here is the first paragraph. Here's how they begin it. CNBC's Jim Cramer argued that President Donald Trump's deal with semiconductor giants NVIDIA and AMD isn't necessarily unprecedented. Quote, there's nothing novel at all about taking a 15% cut. You like the way he talks about this? It's like the mafia. Give us our cut. There's nothing novel at all about taking a 15% cut. It's not like Trump's collecting this money personally. That 15% goes straight to the Treasury, he said. To take a 15% cut on their Chinese sales is basically just another form of tariff. And we've gotten a ton of those lately. So why not this? Well, Cramer, you ignorant buffoon, I'll tell you why not this. Because it's illegal. It's unconstitutional. Tariffs are taxes on imports. This is not a tariff. This is an export tax. And guess what? The Constitution has something to say about export taxes. They make them illegal. The Constitution makes export taxes unconstitutional. Hence, illegal. Article 1, Section 9, Clause 5, the export clause, makes it unconstitutional to tax exports. So that's why not, you jackass. And here he is. And see, this is part of the reason why this country is in the shit that we're in. Because few people even bother to read or to get news. And then when they do, they get this kind of bullshit. They get the first paragraph of this CNBC story just defending Donald Trump pressuring private corporations into paying export taxes, which are unconstitutional. Again, this man is not a conservative. This man is a criminal. This man violates our laws and our Constitution on a daily basis. This man is an authoritarian thug who should be impeached and removed from office immediately. I know it's not going to happen. Not anytime soon. Maybe never. Although I don't think we should give up on that for a second, but certainly not going to happen anytime soon. But there we are.